Hi, this is Bill Kenower of Author Magazine, and tonight we're talking to Pulitzer Prize winning novelist Geraldine Brooks, author of the just-released Caleb's Crossing. We sat down at Third Place Books in Lake Forest Park and talked about how a novelist extracts a compelling narrative from the hard facts of history. Enjoy.
I guess I was about 38 years old, and I was covering a story in Nigeria about how Shell Oil was in cahoots with the brutal military dictatorship there. And they threw me in the slammer. And I had no idea how long they were going to keep me. And I thought of all the reporters who'd been detained for years. And I thought, oh my God, I'm 38 years old. If they keep me for years, I'll be too old to get pregnant. So it was kind of clarifying, I have to say. It hadn't really occurred to me to worry about that. After a few more stories, I just decided that it was time to get serious about having a family. And I wrote another nonfiction book called Foreign Correspondence, which isn't really about foreign correspondence, but it's about all the pen pals I had when I was a kid growing up in Australia. And that book limbered me up. And then my son had been born, and I didn't want to go off on long open-ended assignments to dangerous places anymore. And I'd had this idea that might be a novel, and so I sat down and tried to write it. It usually starts with an unlikely shard of the truth, something that is almost unbelievable or quite unusual. And it has to be something where we can't really know all the details of what happened, because if you know too much, there's not enough room for imagination to work, and then it's a job for a narrative historian. But the first idea that grabbed me was about a town in Derbyshire where bubonic plague had come in 1665, and the town had taken a unique decision and quarantined themselves rather than running for their own lives but spreading infection to surrounding communities. And I was fascinated by that, and how you get a community to take a self-sacrificing decision like that, and then having done it, how they live with the consequences of being in that quarantine, and what could that have been like? Well, there was no way to know, because the villagers had been illiterate lead miners and shepherds, and they hadn't left us a written record of what it was like. So I had to imagine it, and that was Year of Wonders. Try to follow the line of fact as far as it leads. And if by doing research I can uncover something, that's very exciting to me. If I can add a grain of sand to the sandbox of knowledge about an event, that's a wonderful, almost added bonus. But because I didn't intend to be a novelist, I didn't set out to. I've never taken a creative writing class. I don't have an MFA or anything like that. So I kind of approach it very instinctively. And I have an architecture of the truth, so I generally know where the story begins and where it ends. But how it gets there and what the drama of the story, what will happen, I don't generally know. And I rely on my narrator to inform me. And how she speaks and thinks will tell me how she acts, and that will set the plot in motion. And then I know what else I need to know. So I try and do the research driven by the story, and I do it as I go along. For Caleb's Crossing, one of the challenges was that in order to hear Bethia's voice, usually I would read letters and journals, but 17th century colonial America, no women's journal exists before 1700, and no good ones before 1750. So it was a void. The women are silent in that period, except in one place you can hear their voice, in court, when they're hauled into account for their transgressions, and there's verbatim court testimony. And so that's where I went to hear women and to hear what they had on their mind. But I think another challenge of this book was trying to put yourself into a space where you don't know what happens. Bethia's my narrator, And she doesn't know what's coming in terms of the violence and the dispossession and the tragedy of what's going to befall relations between English and Indians on this continent. So we see history backwards. It's the only way we can see it, but she was living it forwards. So to put myself in her mind, where there's still another possible future, where the two people can figure out a way to share the land and live together. I would say let the story drive the research. I think you can, I love libraries and I can get lost there, and it's very fascinating to read gobs of interesting things, but if you let the story tell you what you need to know, you'll get the book done a lot more quickly. And also you won't find yourself trying to contort the plot to fit some interesting fact that you've come across.